88.3 WXOU. Welcome to Sports Talk with Puckett and Pontzer. It is a glorious day to be doing this radio program, as we have had one of the best weeks in Detroit sports that I can remember for a long time, in terms of both off-season moves with the Pistons and Joe Dumars, as well as the trade deadline that we had just a couple days ago, just yesterday in the MLB, with the Tigers making their annual moves that Dave Dombrowski has made himself known for, improving the team in the midseason. Maybe better than anybody else in baseball. That's really how he's made his name as a general manager, and that's how his career has allowed himself to make a name for himself as one of the better GMs in the game of baseball. So, Tim, my co-host here, which trade, we will get into these, we'll break them down a little bit more, but right off the bat, which trade do you like more? The Pistons trade for Brandon Jennings, or the Tigers' multiple deals for Jose Iglesias and Jose Veras?
Yeah, it's a tough question because not one. Both definitely, I believe, improved the respective Detroit squads, but it's tough because I think maybe for the future, the Tigers ones will. I mean, they're also for the future as well. It's tough.
All right, quick response, then we're gonna break them down.
I don't know. I really like the Brandon Jennings move for the Pistons, but I think ultimately the Tigers ones are better because they help the team, still win now. Jose Veras is a guy who's going to be another dependable arm out of the bullpen. I mean, he proved it his first game in. He pitched a scoreless 8 there for the Tigers on Tuesday. And then getting Iglesias is, with the pending suspension of Peralta, he really allows you to just kind of move on like nothing really happened. And while he might not have as good a bat as Peralta, he's definitely a better quality defensive shortstop. I mean, 2-3 times fold. I mean, very, very much so. So ultimately, I like it because it helps the Tigers to win and continue their run to try and get a World Series.
Right. Okay, so these 3 deals, I agree with Tim. I think the Tigers definitely made the better deals of the 2.
But it's not saying that the Pistons one is terrible.
No, not at all. I'm more excited about the Tigers' moves, and I think that you are also.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that they're playing right now as well. So, we'll see Brandon Jennings on the court.
But getting into those trades, Tuesday morning, Jose Veras was dealt from the Houston Astros to the Tigers for not much, really, in my opinion.
A player to be named later, and then
it was basically their 4th best outfielder in the minor leagues.
Yeah, a funny guy, Dan Ray Vasquez.
Right. So, not a guy that, we're super familiar with. Time spent both in AA and AAA. Not a guy that it's not Avisail Garcia, it's not Nick Castellanos.
Right. Dombrowski, he would say that no matter who he was making a trade for, whenever he would make an inquiring call for anyone, people would always come back with a list of names, and you would imagine that those names are Castellanos. And Avisail Garcia,
right.
Maybe Drew Smiley, maybe Rick Porcello.
Right.
He said they would always have those. And he was able to get Jose Veras for a guy who apparently is hitting 281 in single A West Michigan.
Like I said, he's basically their 4th best outfielder. I read a blog this week after this deal went down, and it basically was the author mentioned, he said, how did that phone call go between Dave Dombrowski and the Houston Astros? And he envisioned it, and he wrote it out as basically being like, hey, we're the Tigers, you suck. You have this guy that's decent, and nobody else on your team is. You're not going anywhere, so you're going to give me this guy, and I'm going to give you, a bag of baseballs and this guy. So, which is basically the player to be named later and this 4th best outfielder. We have guys who are expendable, and you need them, so give me this guy, and that's basically how I envision it going, like that author
did. And Veras is a guy who he has a team option for next year. But he's 32, excuse me, and he's bounced around. He's played this is his 7th team, and he signed with the Astros last year, and this was his first year being a closer. Before he's pitched out of the bullpen in a variety of roles. But he, right now he has an ERA just a shade under 3 with the Astros, and while his record's like 0-4, I mean, you got to remember he's pitching for the Astros.
Exactly.
But the thing about it, opponents are hitting 192 against him this year, only 14 walks, and lately in July he has a 0 ERA with 6 strikeouts over the month of July.
Right.
So.
For the 2013 season, which is the most relevant for a midseason trade.
Yeah.
So basically the first half of the year, he has a 2.86 ERA.
Right.
He has a whip below 1 at .98, which is incredible, especially for a reliever. Starters, you can expect a lower whip, but for a reliever who doesn't get as many innings, that whip is very, very good. He has 19 saves, which won't really matter so much for the Tigers as they're going to use him as a 7th or 8th inning guy. But he has, in 43 games that he's gotten into, he has 44 innings pitched. So he's a solid inning guy.
Exactly.
He will do 1 inning for you.
And he's the Dombrowski, he mentioned that the last time they saw him pitch, he actually pitched like over an inning, like the last time he saw him, and they really liked his last outing. Not that that's what caused him to pull the trigger, but he got a save in 1.2 innings of work against the Blue Jays just a couple days ago. The thing is he's a guy who I kind of imagine him basically being what Al Albuquerque was like 2 seasons ago when they went to the ALCS. You have him, and then Smiley is what Benoit was, and then Benoit is what Valverde was, where you had that 7-8-9. And what is also nice about Veras is that he has that experience closing. So if later on this year, if Benoit has a back-to-back outings, you can throw him out there and he could still get the save.
And he has experience, which Smiley doesn't.
Which
have.
is something that you really don't want to see Phil Koch or Smiley or Albuquerque, going out there, because it's been bad before. So that's really what I like from him. And he's just you gave up not a lot for him. You gave up an outfielder, which Dombrowski and many have highlighted is a tremendous area of depth for the Tigers. So giving up a single A guy and whoever else this player to be named later doesn't detract from the future all that much.
Right. And
it helps for right now, because we've talked about it on this show. This is an area of need for sure, the bullpen, and I think this is a solid pickup. He's not a big name, like a flashy bullpen, name or something, but he's going to be a guy that gets the job done, and that's what you wanted to see from Dave Dombrowski.
Right. He's averaging a strikeout per inning, which is solid once again for a reliever, and he only has 14 walks, which you don't want relievers to walk guys.
Exactly.
So, like we said,
something that Albuquerque, that's kind of why I compared him to Albuquerque. Albuquerque 2 years ago was just dominant.
Right, but Albuquerque would strike out more guys.
He would strike out more guys, but he was good for that 1 inning in the 7th. Wouldn't strike out any guys. Now he's become this guy who will walk 1 or 2 an inning.
2 years ago. Now he's more, last year in the small time we got to see him, he was used more of like, you have a runner on first and second, you need like 2 more outs, bring in Albuquerque to strike somebody out. But that's kind of what he got.
That 2011 season,
he was very good.
And it's a shame he had that freaking accident with the ball and batting practice, hit him in the head or whatever, and he's never really been the same since then. But 2011, he was that guy. 7th inning, you have the lead. Here we go. And it's kind of been annoying as a Tigers fan watching this team where they'll be up 5 runs. And Jim Leland, brings out Benoit, to seal it up
in the 9th.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's not what you want to see. You want to be able to save him for these save situations. And Benoit is not, while he can be dependable, he's not as much as a workhorse as other closers can be.
Right.
So this is why I really like that he's kind of a dual guy there, where he can help with Benoit. So you have that 5-run lead in the 8th or 9th. Bring Veras out. It doesn't even have to be a save situation.
Right.
Or if Benoit pitched 2 days in a row and now you need this save situation, 3-run game, he can come out there and do it for you.
Exactly. And I think that it was overshadowed by the next trade that the Tigers made, which was on Wednesday night.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I do think that it was a solid pickup. And it makes your bullpen not as much of a weakness as it was before. It makes your team better. Exactly. And instead of having to rely on Smiley to maybe throw 2 innings, which Leland does not like to do, you can just put Smiley in the 8th, which Leland said he would. Keep Benoit, I almost forgot his name there, Benoit in the 9th as your closer, because he's perfect this season.
Far, yeah.
So, and then it allows you flexibility with guys like Albuquerque, who's still with the team, with guys like Bruce Rondon, who's still with the team and is young. You can give him experience in games where you have a bigger lead, and you can throw him out there for an inning or two if you wanted to. And then it allows you to not use Phil Koch at all unless you're facing a lefty. And then you have Evan Reed, who is like a young guy, kind of a long reliever, I guess. Because they sent down Puckett, which was an interesting move going into the next trade that they made.
Yes. But
it didn't end up being a factor. But the bigger move was for Jose Iglesias from the Boston Red Sox.
Yep.
A right-handed shortstop, defensive genius, star defensively. He's batting .330 this season, which is not what I expect him to do.
It's somewhat misleading, to be completely honest.
I mean, as a Tiger fan, when you see this guy, if you didn't know who he was, you go look at his stats, like, who's this guy we just got? And you're like, .330, holy cow. But everybody's talking about his defense, which, deservingly so, is more relevant to the trade that was made.
Especially at the shortstop position.
Exactly. So in what was a 3-team deal, but was not executed as a 3-team deal, the Tigers give up Brian Villarreal, much to the excitement of every Tiger fan, and Avisail Garcia, who played a major role last year.
Yes, he did.
On the World Series roster. I mean, going into the World Series, he was your starting left fielder.
And he
or
was
right
a
fielder.
leadoff hitter at times. So you not in the play, but for much of that season when Austin Jackson was out for a little bit, he was your leadoff hitter, center fielder.
Yeah. Well, him and Quentin Berry.
Yep.
So Quentin Berry's not even with the organization, with any organization as far as I know, because Kansas City cut him.
I don't know.
Not that it matters. But Jose Iglesias, young kid.
Yes, he is.
Garcia goes to the White Sox.
Yep.
The White Sox give up PV to Boston.
Yes.
And then Iglesias comes to Detroit, which is the three major pieces that moved.
Right, and yes.
Villarreal went to Boston, and then some lower-level prospects went from Boston to Chicago.
Yeah.
But like I said, three major pieces. In my opinion, it helps all three teams, which you would expect from a 3-team deal.
Right, that's the idea.
But I think the Tigers got the best part. I think the Tigers won the trade.
I mean, ultimately, you look at some of the, and if you're a baseball prospectus guy, some of the guys that the White Sox are getting, especially some of the younger guys, are supposed to be like really highly rated guys at what they do. But for right now, winning, Iglesias is, especially with this looming Peralta thing. It'd be different if Peralta was still here, which could maybe happen, but not likely. And if he was going to be playing second or third for you, but I think that's what really it allows the team to just really forget Johnny Peralta played for the Tigers.
Yeah,
and
it. Some people are saying, Johnny Peralta cost the Tigers Avisail Garcia.
You can make that argument,
which is, like you said, you can make that argument.
Because
however,
I don't think Dombrowski, if this suspension is going to happen, I don't think Dombrowski is inquiring about Jose Iglesias he's probably not inquiring about any shortstop from anybody.
No, I agree with you.
Maybe he brings in, I know we talked this week, I really wanted another left-hander in the bullpen. That didn't happen. And I wouldn't have minded maybe getting another bat to play like left field or something, or second base, since your situation there is kind of whatever right now. But he brings in a shortstop, and not only for now, but for the foreseeable future as well.
Right. And that's why I think Jose Iglesias' job, not this season but going forward, is to make Tigers fans not say Johnny Peralta cost the Tigers Avisail Garcia. It's Johnny Peralta got the Tigers Jose Iglesias. Because that's the other argument that you can make, is that if this guy, he's under team control until, Barack Obama's no longer president, he could be one of the best shortstops that defensively that the Tigers have had since Trammell and
that's the thing.
Whitaker.
Guys, when Dombrowski was talking about him, he said that their scouts for not just the Tigers but for all sorts of teams. I mean, he was talking about how the Tiger scouts kind of had him on the low end of their ratings, while other teams, he's like, and that was, and I'm not explaining this well. Their rating was like on the lower end compared to other teams.
Right.
And their rating for him was a future all-star shortstop, the Tigers rating. Other guys had him perfect fielding rating, and they have him listed as like, the one scout says, the only guys that I have seen better than him are Ozzie Smith and Omar Vizquel, who just retired
He
last
played
week.
He was 80.
But both of those guys were known for their defense, and that's why they stuck around for so. I mean, Ozzie Smith's a legendary shortstop, and Omar Vizquel that's what he was known for, was defense. Not as much as bat, but for sure defense. So to bring in a guy like that, and now people are saying he's the future, along with the second baseman who the Tigers have been playing lately. You now have a formidable middle of your infield,
right,
for the foreseeable future, which for maybe a year or two ago you did not. I mean, Omar Infante is a guy who was once on the Tigers, then you bring him back, and right now he's hurt, and that injury is kind of lingering a lot longer than many have expected. But Jose Iglesias is a guy who should be exciting for Tigers fans, and I think he could become someone who can just be a rock there at short. And what he gives you with his bat is kind of gravy, really. He's a guy who's not going to be batting in the top third or second third of your lineup probably, and what he's going to provide for you is his defensive prowess.
Right, and he's extremely versatile. He was playing third for the Red Sox because of their situation at short.
Right.
He can play third base, and I think an interesting note is if for some reason you were to draft a shortstop in your organization, which the Tigers have not been able to do in a long time,
right,
but I'm just saying it provides you flexibility if you were able to trade for one or bring one up through the system, that he could play third for when Prince Fielder becomes your DH, because that's going to happen.
You would hope so.
And Cabrera will go back to first, in my opinion. Right. And then that allows you flexibility on that left side of your infield, which, is not likely, and this guy was brought here to be a shortstop because that's what he is.
Exactly.
But he is versatile.
Right.
And allows you to do that.
And Dombrowski, he praises his versatility, like I said, but, I mean, he was... it's been real funny to hear basically every voice out of this organization in regards to Johnny Peralta. They just would not speak of the suspension, not speak of the biogenesis. Nobody would talk about it. But in the past 48 hours, everybody's starting to open up, including Peralta himself, and except for Leland. Leland won't talk about it at all. But Dombrowski was like, "Hey, the more we heard about it, the more I was concerned. I read the same paper you do.
Right. I see the same names,
and he started to get worried. And when he started to hear, that it's not just going to be, the way he put it was, we were confident in our situation internally that we have guys we can bring. Danny Worth still in the organization. You have Santiago who can play anywhere really in your infield, anywhere. You have this, and I can never remember the guy that plays second right now for the Tigers, the young guy that they have.
Oh, Perez.
Yeah, that guy. Herman Perez, or whatever. And then you have Infante hopefully coming back sometime soon.
Yeah.
Infante, he was confident if someone was a 15-day DL. If Peralta tweaked his ankle 15 days, he says we're confident about that. But he said we were not at all confident about a 50-day thing. And
it shows by the move that he made.
Exactly. And that's what I think the number one thing in this trade was, that and so did Peralta cause him to tip his hand? I believe he did. But what Dombrowski was thrilled is that he wasn't giving up one of their top trade chips in Avisail Garcia for a rental, or for just I don't know, like a JJ Hardy or a Stevenger or something that's just going to play shortstop to try and win a title now. But this guy is going to be hopefully in a Tigers uniform for 5, 6, 7 years.
You traded your second best outfield prospect behind Nick Castellanos, in my opinion, and in most Tigers people's opinion.
Yeah,
your second best outfielding prospect for the best shortstop prospect you could get.
Right.
Which is unbelievable. And it's magic that Dombrowski did that.
And when everybody, and even this show, when we talked about, how they were going to address this situation, it wasn't in this manner. It was, maybe you're giving up Castellanos something for Jimmy Rollins, or like I said, like a JJ Hardy, Drew, somebody that's going to be able to play short now to win now. And everybody was willing to do that. Hey, give Castellanos away to get
Rollins.
Exactly. To get someone to win now. And the thing is that's Dombrowski, his quotes were, we, in order to give up or to get a good young player, we had to give up a good young player. And Avisail Garcia is a guy who, played it with the Tigers. I played some this year. and he was hitting over almost 400 with Toledo right now. So he's a guy who, on other clubs, and Dombrowski even said this, he would be playing right now. But because of the Tiger situation in the outfield, if they don't make that Torrey Hunter sign in the offseason, Avisail Garcia is probably on the roster, big league
definitely.
roster. But the other thing is, because unlike Castellanos, he gives a above average speed, which Castellanos doesn't have. Now Castellanos swings probably a better bat in terms of power for sure, but Garcia is more of a close to a 5-tool player than Castellanos is, and that's why he would be up here with the club. But because you have guys like Dirks in front of him, and especially Jackson and Hunter, that's why you have Tuiasa Sopo up here, because Tuiasa is more of a platoon guy. But just like Castellanos, they wanted to see Garcia playing more, and Garcia kind of struggled a little bit when he was up here with the club, or when Jackson was hurt. So Avisail Garcia is going to go to the White Sox, and he'll probably be playing for them in September. And he's going to be a guy.
Tomorrow.
He's going to be a guy. He's going to be a guy. Right now he's in AAA, but he's going to be a guy that you will probably be seeing a lot of. And that's Dombrowski was saying that. We're going to be seeing him close to 20 times a year. And I didn't really want to see that. But to get a good young player in Iglesias, we gave up a good young player ourselves. And like I mentioned before in the trade for Veras, this is definitely a place where they have a plethora of talent. They have depth. They don't have that in the infield, and the Red Sox do. I don't know if you've heard, but in their middle infield, they have a guy named Pedroia who's really good, and they have some good young prospects. So, Iglesias though is a guy who was able to play for the Red Sox because of some of their situation in third base. I mean, heck, he was the Rookie of the Month last month. He hit 330 with 10 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 19 RBI this year. But last month he hit 395, and with a bunch of stats after that, and he was the Rookie of the Month.
Right.
And so that's the thing. They're very similar in that they're young prospects that can play now. Garcia just was stuck behind some guys, and Garcia was excited to go to Detroit. And I thought it was interesting. Guys like Leland was excited to see Villarreal go, and excited to see Garcia go, not because he wanted to see them go, from the organization, but they're going to get to go play probably and
change the scenery.
Right. And he's like, I hope we succeed. They succeed, and I hope that they can do well, because then that means later you'll be able to trade with those teams again. And it's rare to see a division rival trade. Like for a big piece of yours, a young prospect, to go to a division rival, but Dombrowski was only talking to Boston the whole time.
Right.
And like you mentioned, but they were up front with him, and they said, hey, we're going to give Garcia to Chicago. Are you cool with that? And he said, absolutely. But I don't think he would do this if it was just, if we're bringing in like Alex Rios or something. He's not going to be like, hey, but because the way the trade worked, like you said, you get one of the best shortstop prospects you can get, and Dombrowski works his magic again. And just like his other trades, I know I'm going on for a while, but just like his other trades, this isn't just a move for now, but it helps you in the future. That's when we brought in Scherzer and Fister, it helped at the time, but it helped them even more this year. That's just the way Dombrowski works, and it was a success.
And the thing is name me the last Tigers prospect that was traded for somebody who can help them now that turned into anything. Granted, I think Avisail Garcia is going to be a very good major league player, but who did the Tigers give up for Miguel Cabrera? Andrew Miller and Cameron Maben, who do nothing. I mean, I think Cameron Maben's with the Padres, and Andrew Miller's with the Red Sox.
I would bring up I know Jacob Turner was he was hot stuff up here,
and he plays for Miami, but
he's a middle of the rotation guy for the Marlins.
Right.
Jar Jurgens, one of my favorite. He is back in the Tigers organization. He had some good years in Atlanta. I know that everybody always brings up the Atlanta pitcher
John
Smoltz. And he had a
that was in
career.
like the 80s.
But that's what I would say. That's probably the last. And
Tigers
fans always point to that.
But that's what I'm talking about. I mean, the Tigers. I saw a writer say, Dave Dombrowski takes seeds and turns them into meat and potatoes.
Exactly.
Which is unbelievable. And the seeds just die.
And the fans should appreciate that, because Leland he said Dombrowski, and he was with Dombrowski in Florida, then the Marlins as well. He's like, he is a guy who takes risks, who isn't afraid to trade prospects, because people, and I even here in Detroit, people become so enamored with these prospects. I mean, Jacob Turner, people are like, we are only giving up Jacob Turner if we get Bryce Harper back. Like, people were like that, and that's not the way it works.
Right.
And
there's a reason that they're still prospects.
And people are enamored, but they hear writers talk about it and they hear things about it, and people are enamored with Bruce Rondon, and people are enamored, especially with Castellanos. But you have to give up prospects sometimes to get guys that can help you. And basically, this trade is kind of almost like basically not a AAA product, but a major league ready prospect for another major league ready prospect. Both have proven themselves somewhat at the major league level. Iglesias really more so than Garcia, and like I said, that's what amazes me about these trades is Dombrowski not only helps now, and he gets guys that nobody really talks about. No writers, forecast. No fans talk about. Nobody was talking about Doug Fister or Scherzer coming to the Tigers, but they helped them then. People are talking about some of those big name guys. People are an example of this. If people would be talking about a Peavy, and now Peavy wasn't connected to the Tigers this year, but if they were, going to make a run, that's the pitcher everybody thinks of, right? The big name at the free agent, or the trade deadline. But instead, Dombrowski gets guys, maybe those mid-level guys, and not in terms of talent, but they're name-wise, and then he brings them in, and they can help now. And I think Iglesias is going to help now. I think it was very convenient that, unlike Veras, who they get on a plane Monday night, because the trade goes down Monday night, and he's here Tuesday, introduced to the media, pitches that day, he was able to help the Tigers right away. I think it's very convenient that Dombrowski's like, hey, you know what, Iglesias? Take your time. Be here Friday. Because this happens late Tuesday night, basically Wednesday morning. Tigers play Wednesday. They have the day off Thursday, when many believe that Peralta will probably be suspended, maybe tonight, Friday morning. Right. And then Friday, he's right in the lineup. Yeah. And it's very convenient. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think in a couple hours, Peralta's going to something's going to happen, be handed down. Whether he appeals it or not is yet to be seen. But Dombrowski, he's a smart guy. He's like, and all those, rumors about, hey, we don't, no. He knows. That's why this trade's made. But he heard enough about it to be worried to the point that he took a risk and made a trade.
Right. And some of the other names on that list, like Bartolo Colon, like Nelson Cruz.
Melky Cabrera.
These guys are on contending teams. Oakland's in first place in the NL West.
Yeah, Bartolo Colon has one of the best records.
He's like their ace. Yeah. Yep. And if he's gone, what did the A's do to get better?
No.
What did the Texas Rangers do to replace Nelson Cruz? Nelson Cruz has like 28 home runs. These teams are going to fall back, and the Tigers are just going to take this in stride. Right in stride. You lose your starting shortstop for the last 2 years. Yeah. He's gone to the ALCS, the World Series, and you're just going to take it right in stride.
You're losing a guy who has been on 2 of the 3 past All-Star rosters, starting All-Star, reigning All-Star shortstop.
Right.
Leland loves the guy. Leland called the move to bring in Peralta one of the best Dombrowski's ever made. And he says not a lot of people talk about that. He got him from Cleveland, and he immediately was in the lineup 4 years ago.
Right.
And he helped him then. But Peralta is a guy who, he doesn't, and that's Dombrowski was saying, he's not, Peralta is more likely to maybe knock one out of the park than Iglesias is, but people have worse words than Dombrowski is. He's definitely not as defensively talented as Iglesias is.
No, he's not.
He's kind of like a stone out there.
The other thing that Iglesias adds is, does this make Rick Porcello better?
Absolutely.
Does this make Doug Fister better?
Right.
Does this make Miguel Cabrera better?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
He will make the entire team
right,
better. And I'm not trying to build up this 23-year-old too much, right. But people need to realize this guy is the defensive shortstop prospect that there is in the whole league.
Right.
And he is going to bring that to the Tigers organization.
Great
move.
Three seasons of baseball, 6 errors at shortstop.
Right.
So that's pretty good.
Great. And you said the best defensive shortstop since Omar Vizquel.
Well,
right.
And people have gotten overhyped for sure before, but baseball scouting is a little different. People will be like, "Hey, look at this guy, this guy." But to get the way they rank them, I just learned this past couple of days is if you get an 80 at something in scouting, that's like the best there is. Which you think out of 100, no, it's like on a scale of 80. And there's been a couple guys that have gotten 80 in certain areas, like Mike Trout got an 80 in power, like Harper got an 80 in speed.
Okay.
The guy from Miami, the Giancarlo Stanton, he got an 80 in power, but to get an 80 in fielding, I mean, that's a much broader thing, and he got an 80 in fielding.
Right.
So
the best rating you can get.
Right. I mean, his fielding percentage is .979.
And unlike hitting, defense doesn't go away. Like, if you're good at defense, you're just kind of good at defense. Right. You're not going to lose that necessarily. Right.
And especially it'd be one thing if he's 33, but he's 23.
Exactly.
He's a guy that is going to be in your lineup for the next 10 years, hopefully. Exactly. And that's what Dombrowski's able to do. And not only is he going to be in the lineup for the next 10 years, but even 5 years, but he's going to help you now. And it's a perfect trade for Dombrowski. And, hopefully Villarreal was this year at an ERA over 20 before he was on the DL. Last year, he was a key cog in that bullpen that went to the World Series. Hopefully he has success in Boston, and Garcia, hopefully he doesn't, hit walk-off bombs at U.S. Cellular, against the Tigers in the next couple of years. But unfortunately, you have to give up a guy. But like you said, you didn't give up Castellanos. You didn't give up anybody on the current Major League roster. I would have liked to have seen them make maybe one more move for a left-handed specialist, but ultimately this trade deadline is a success, and Dombrowski once again proves his worth, and the Tigers are, they're winning 5 in a row. They look like they're on their way to once again contending without losing anything.
Right. A couple Jose's later, Veras and Iglesias. Exactly. The Tigers are a better team, and another team that got better is the Pistons. So we'll be back to talk about the trade that they made this week after this break.